Welcome to MindShareTV, where we connect you with the brightest minds shaping the future of education. I'm Robert Martellacci, your host from the MindShare Learning Report. Today, we're thrilled to have a very special guest, Jolene Levin, who is chair of EdSpaces, a recent conference that was hosted that I missed out on. I'm feeling FOMO, hence I'm going to be speaking to the remarkable Jolene Levin. With years of expertise leading innovation and learning environments, Jolene will share her reflections, key takeaways, and what's next for reimagining educational spaces. Welcome, Jolene.
Thank you for having me. You should have FOMO, and we wanted you there. So next time you'll have to come.
Absolutely. Perhaps you can share a little bit about your journey and your passion, and what we missed out on EdSpaces. What is it all about?
Absolutely. Well, EdSpaces and our whole industry, around education, we're really in such a fascinating, interesting reflection point. Schools are definitely changing and transforming, and EdSpaces is really a great convergence, I think, for people that really want to understand what's going on in education. So it's not just about the product there, which is amazing, and to have all the vendors there. It's very tactile. But the content and the learning programs are really, unpacking what's happening in education. We have a lot of educators that come and speak and a lot of architects that come and speak. There's also incredible school tours that you can go on. So go and see what innovative schools are doing around that area. And it's just always a really exciting show that brings together industry, architecture, and education.
Fascinating. Well, we just came off hosting our 15th Canadian Tech Summit. So very relatable. We were in a brand new facility. I shared with you off air, the Zebra architects were participating, and they won the recent Lego innovation competition to design their innovation campus. So it really makes a difference when you create the right conditions. As
Correct.
we are in a co-working innovation center that is most inspiring, that I created 7 years ago. We're celebrating our 7th anniversary in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And now we've come of age. The learning environments, they talk about it being like the third teacher.
Yep. So that is actually a beautiful concept that comes from Reggio Emilio, as I'm sure some people know. And, the first teacher is the educator, your second teacher is the learners and your peers, and then the third is the environment. And we've been on a mission for a very long time, as you know, like really drilling in the importance of space and why the learning environment really matters. And a lot of the work that we're doing, both through Ed Markets, and at EdSpaces, it's really helping to bring all of that research and knowledge and those people together that are designing and curating learning for the next 20 or 30 years, and what those spaces look like and how to support all learners in those environments.
Fascinating. So talk to me about some of the trends that you're seeing. As I described to you when I had the photo come up behind me, the lecture hall, the main lecture hall we were in, was circular in nature. So, history repeats itself. We're going back to, the First Nations peoples and how they learn in a circle.
Yep.
As an example.
And, so the trends and the way that we're thinking now, so we used to design classrooms, with 24 desks and chairs. There would be a cafeteria and a library in your school building, and those were the spaces that they were. So as we've sort of gone through the last 20 to 25 years, really gaining that mass traction and understanding that outcomes for learning are different. So it all starts there. We go away from rote learning, and we understand that we need to develop kids to come out of the school system with these core competencies. And when we unpack what those are, like collaboration, critical thinking, resilience, grit, communication, all of those skill sets, we're now understanding that the built environment can be a tool and a facilitator to not only the attainment of these skills, but we also need to think very deeply around inclusion and equity and what that means for all types of learners. And so in terms of trends, Robert, like a few things. one, as we look at that, there's new types of spaces in schools. So we're not really only designing classrooms and those spaces. You hear of innovation spaces, libraries becoming media centers, learning studios, understanding how to use alcoves and hallways as gathering spaces.
Right.
So
And then
definitely
virtual learning environments.
100%,
Right.
and online hybrid learning and how to integrate that into that learning studio or learning space. CTE. So that's another massive trend that people are
Right.
talking about in education as well. And with all of these trends come new ways of looking at the design of the built environment, as well as what we call the affordances that feed into that space. So the furniture, the tools, the equipment, and how can we design that to match a modern pedagogy?
Fascinating. In the past, it was build a box, fill the box with desks and
Yep.
chairs that aren't comfortable.
Yep.
And now we've evolved to, as we have co-op students every semester in our workspace, flexible learning environments, soft seating, you name it. Let's drill down a little bit in terms of EdSpaces is known for both focus, both in design and technology. How do you see the intersection of these elements driving change in learning environments? We talk a lot about it. We talk a lot about AI, but we're still struggling with the actual scaling and implementation. We can all point in a school district to at least one great example, but I'm a fan of democratizing learning and equity and equitable learning environments as well.
Well,
Thoughts?
I think the common themes, Robert, that go through AI as well as like and all of this learning space is personalization and differentiation, right? So we are now understanding that all learners learn differently. So, they respond to different things in their environment. And tools like AI can actually be very facilitative, and supportive, right, to building in a personalized and differentiated program and instruction. And it definitely changes the environment, even just a little thing. So, 16 years ago, when we did our very first school, that was the first time in Australia that the kids were getting iPads, for example. It was one-to-one, right? They were
Right.
getting it in their hands. Even that shift of putting the technology into the hands of the learner, as opposed to just having it in one focal point at the front of the room, now allowed that space to be 360 degrees. So all of a sudden, we're using the space even on a different plane. We're understanding that not everybody has to face in one direction. We want to build in collaboration. So we need to make sure that it's easy to collaborate in those environments. So technology, to me, has been the change agent. And now we're understanding that the built environment is part of that, change.
Talk to me about AI. Speaking of technology, how is AI making its way into EdSpaces and from a design thinking perspective?
So, we actually through Ed Market, they do these great sessions called Chairman's Roundtable. And we just had two sessions which were just focused on AI. So one, we actually had Robert Dickinson, who's the Chief Information Officer at Wichita School District. And he is doing incredible
He's
work.
an amazing mind. I know him well.
Yeah, I mean, so he was amazing to speak to and for us to understand, even as space people, what's happening in that realm, how are they teaching? And what's interesting is it allows for even different kinds of schools to pop up, now that we've got assisted almost tutoring, happening there. And then the other one that we had was how AI is working in the design process for designers. And, just also speaking to really interesting people that's utilizing some of this technology to actually curate and design certain spaces, very much at its infancy, but it's going to find its way into the design process as well.
It is a process. Sustainability is growing priority in schools infrastructure. What were any notable discussions or projects? I'm sharing, speaking of sustainability, we have a national conference. We see a recycling program there that really illuminates the concept of recycling for kids. These are future leaders, and we're trying to instill in ingrain the Sustainable Development Goals or National Schools of the Future Challenge, solving a real world problem,
Yeah.
align with SDGs?
Well, and on that, so a couple things that people sort of speak to in the realm of that. So definitely sustainability integration into community. So to me, it's also about how do we like blend education with life. So we don't just learn in this building, but it's a part of everything that
Mm,
we do. I did actually manage to convince a common friend of ours, Luke, from Vireo Education, to come
yes, of
to Canada.
course. Winner of our startup challenge a couple of
Yeah,
years
and
back.
bring his gardens down, and he had a great response, and just everything that his curriculum does around, that tactile application of entrepreneurship and sustainability and all of that. So, having people like him come to the show has elevated that conversation. And then there's definitely manufacturers that are looking towards a circular economy and how we use different materials in better ways to make sure that we're leaving a good footprint inside
Right.
schools as well with
And
the furniture.
bringing the outdoors inside
Yeah.
as well, right, is critical because we know the benefits. I've shared many studies on well being about being outdoors, but bringing the outdoors inside and
Hmm.
creating courtyards and having trees and greenery uh, really does make an impact on your mindset, doesn't it?
100%. So, I mean, even through the Eclipse program, we unpack a lot of biophilic research. And there's been studies done by the Salk Institute and, really great institutes around bringing biophilia into the classroom and the refutable impact on reduction in stress, increase in productivity, just, yeah. So putting kids in the right cognitive mind frame, for learning, actually.
Absolutely. One of the most inspiring aspects of the conferences like EdSpaces is collaboration. Can you share an example of a partnership or project from the event that truly excited you as the chair of this organization?
Well, what's really cool about EdSpaces, and I think you had it there at the beginning, are those designed classrooms. So those are always a great collaboration piece. One thing that's really important, as we always say, we go to these conferences and then we learn in environments that are not conducive to learning. Sometimes we're in hotels or conference rooms. So the architecture community generally collaborates with the industry partners to enter a competition, design these classrooms that are more reflective of what a future learning environment will be. And that really helps to set the scene and to get people sort of in the moment and in the spaces for that. So, and then
So,
the content, and as well, we always have the speakers are generally always partnered up with educators and school districts. So that's also what I love about EdSpaces, is it really highlights the importance of the educator's voice.
amazing. Are we making change happen? Innovation happens at the speed of trust.
I love
And
that. I love that.
and that was Covey, I think, who wrote the Seven Habits. So to borrow from his, to paraphrase him, um, we have challenges. There's so many moving parts in an education ecosystem. The easiest thing for school districts to do is build a building and throw in furniture
Hmm.
from an old school, which is very commonly happening, or they design a school and they don't budget enough for the actual infrastructure, furniture
Yep.
inside. Any advice on that? Are there some great examples? Uh, what would accelerate the process?
Well, brings me back to, the reason for having our certification program in this industry. So something that struck me many years ago was that there actually is a lot of research that backs up the importance of creating the types of learning environments and the kind of transformation that you and I agree on, that's happening in a lot of districts. And so I think now we are starting to see the tide change, as we can start to bring some of these case studies, this data, this research from, it's from the fields of neuroscience and environmental behavioral psychology and all of these places, we're starting to see schools really, understand better. So I do think we're starting to reach a more mass consensus around this, but it's slow.
Talk to me about what's next. What excites you coming out of this EdSpaces conference? What's next for EdSpaces? What's next for you? Is there an opportunity for us to get more engaged in this community? For folks who are on, we've got a number of people watching live. If you have a question for Jolene, you can put it in the chat perhaps, or make a comment. This is my guest is Jolene Levin, who is the chair of Ed Market and having recently hosted the EdSpaces conference in Texas.
Yes. So I would love there to be a greater cross section between technology and space, because they do go hand in hand and impact each other. It's good to see some technology and curriculum companies there. I mean, I will say a highlight was again celebrating our common friend Angela, as she won the David McCurrick Award, at EdMarket.
Wow.
The most prestigious award. And just as a fellow female in this industry, just so, proud of her as well. But I think that we need to find those cross sections more, where we come into the conversation together, because it everything you do and we do from either side of it impacts the learner ultimately.
How important are partnerships? To add one final question that just came off the top of my head.
Really,
how important are partnerships?
Very important. And we're always seeking them, and EdMarket's always seeking them. I think, for us, we would like to see proper standards come into education from a space perspective. We understand that the built environment impacts learners differently and deeply. And so we want to be able to raise awareness around the intelligence of creating these environments that are responsive to learners and learning needs in the future. And, some of the brightest minds around even trends sit on the ed tech side. So bringing this all together, ultimately we all helping the same market, schools, transform and move forward.
I can bet a number of teachers who might see this teacher desk that won a prize, the Classical teacher desk, would be so excited to have that in their classroom space. I love the design thinking and approach that EdMarket has to raising the bar in helping create learning environments that are conducive to optimizing students' focus and teachers' ability to teach kids the way they should be taught, in a hands-on environment, flexible spaces. I did my master's research on interactive learning environments within the classroom back in the day.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm sitting in front of an LCD panel now, which they were interactive whiteboards. And this is one of the largest boards on the market. I think it's 8 feet long. And it's got on wheels, movable, flexible. And it really caters to our philosophy here in nurturing work and learning in the MindShare workspace on a daily basis. So grateful for your time. Jolene, any final thoughts to share for folks if they're interested in getting involved with EdMarket or I'm sure you have many committees.
We do. And we love people to get involved. Shout out to our Bold Woman Collective as well, because that's our fastest growing network in EdMarket. What's beautiful is, again, we've got women from industry, architecture and design, and from school districts as well on this committee. And it's just growing and growing. So any woman in education at all that's looking to grow a network and meet fantastic people should come and join us at the Bold Woman Collective.
Well, grateful for your time this afternoon, Jolene. You're based in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And you're a mother, you're a proud mom of four kids.
Yes.
So you really have a vested interest in this. You're
I
passionate.
really do. Yes.
Yeah. And well, with that, thank you again, Jolene, for your incredible insights and leadership in this space. EdSpaces continues to be a beacon of inspiration for educators, designers, and policymakers alike. To our listeners, let us know your thoughts and how you're transforming learning in your spaces. Share with us and we could reshare. And until next time, my name is Robert Martellacci of the MindShare Learning Report, and stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.
Thank you.